We've got our own subcommittee on oversight and Judiciary Committee. But do they want to have hearings on Big Bird and Ernie? All of the alleged waste and fraud and abuse that Mr. Musk is finding with his untutored, unvetted, juvenile computer hacker crew? Come on. Let's show some institutional self-respect. This is the Congress of the United States. We're not delegating our power to Elon Musk or anybody else.
Like the President of the United States, for example. Radical left-wing extremist lost Mark's brother, Jamie Raskin, a Democrat congressman from Maryland. And an embarrassment to bipedal mammals. Yeah, every 19-year-old that hangs out with Elon Musk would eat your lunch, Raskin, every day of the week. I was smarter than you when I was 12. I'm sorry, that sounded like a brag, but most 12-year-olds are smarter than Jamie Raskin. Michael Piercy was smarter than Jamie Raskin when he was 9. Talking about Raskin now, you know. Don't do it like that. The Democrat Party, there's a lot wrong with them. President Trump, this is funny stuff, too. President Trump is a funny guy. The Democrats really hate that, too. And he's been funny a number of times the last couple of days. But let's go to this ridiculous Democrat scam that they're pulling, the big lie. They know the rules that they learned from their boy of the Socialist Workers' Party in Germany, Joseph Goebbels, or as the Reverend Al Charlatan calls him, Gurgle, because he's a historic scholar himself.
Did I hear you correctly say that perhaps he was influenced by Gurgle?
It's possible. It's possible. The Democrats definitely influenced by Gurgle. The famous line, a lie told once remains a lie. A lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. And the Democrat Party repeats the lie in concert. And they satellites beam their talking points down to them while they're sleeping. The satellites created by the patriarchy, you're welcome, pass overhead at night and shoot their talking points down to their, it goes right through their thin skulls and to their tiny little brains. And they come out and they spew the talking points dutifully because they know what Gurgle taught them, that a lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth.
Are we already in a constitutional crisis?
Those two words, right? Constitutional crisis.
That is a constitutional crisis. And that, by the way, is how dictators come into power.
You've been throwing around the term constitutional crisis.
A constitutional crisis.
Yes.
Are we nearing a constitutional crisis now?
A constitutional crisis. The real constitutional crisis comes if the Supreme Court rules that these things are illegal.
Dangerously close to a constitutional crisis.
Basically on the cusp of a constitutional crisis.
This is dangerous territory. This is a constitutional crisis.
What exactly would qualify as a constitutional crisis? Are we in one?
The constitutional crisis, I believe we are in one.
We will face a constitutional crisis.
Legal scholars say we are headed for a constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis averted for now.
The Democrats issue the talking point. The media, like those bootlicks at CNN, and we had Jake Tapper, who's a former Democrat Capitol Hill staffer who was working for a woman whose son married Chelsea Clinton, whose husband went to prison for corruption because he was a member of Congress too, but pay no attention to that. And they faithfully parrot the Democrat Party's talking point again and again in the spirit of the Socialist Workers' Party propagandist Joseph Goebbels. And it's not Gurgle, like $1 million NBC News journalist Al Charlatan would have it. This came up yesterday at the White House briefing, the White House press conference. Caroline Leavitt, the wonderful, great, smart, capable Caroline Leavitt, decided that she had heard enough of this phony, baloney, Gurgle-style talking point, and she brought it up at the briefing yesterday.
I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority.
Huh. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, a constitutional crisis is undermining the proper function of our government, interfering with the duly elected president of the United States. One of the things that I love, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think I am, they keep going around saying, Musk is unelected, and he's looking at stuff. He's gonna see the big board. He's going to see our Social Security number. And then what exactly do you think? Maybe 12 million illegal aliens have an interest in your Social Security number. But I don't think Elon Musk has an interest in your the 5 guys working for him. I don't think they have any interest in your Social Security number. Pay no attention to that. But they say he's unelected. And these unelected people, everybody that works at the Treasury Department is unelected. Many thousands of people work at and for the Treasury Department, and every one of them is unelected. Everyone at the Pentagon is unelected. There are about 2.5 million federal government employees. Of the 2.5 million federal government employees, I believe that 537 of them are elected. 537. We got 535 members of Congress, right? 435 members of the House and 100 senators. And then we elect the president and the vice president. So that should be 537. Isn't that right? And other than that, we've got, like 2.5 million people that are not elected working for the federal government. And they're all looking at your underpants or whatever you think they're looking at. And they know you're transgender. They don't, honestly, that you people are mentally ill. The unelected Elon Musk. Yeah. Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary was unelected, too. The head of the Federal Reserve Board is unelected. Elon Musk is not elected, and neither is anyone else in the federal government in the executive branch other than the president and the vice president. In the legislative branch, many tens of thousands of people employed, and 535 of them are elected. The rest of them are not. In the judiciary, in the federal, they're not elected. They're nominated by politicians, and some of them, the federal judges, are approved by the Senate, confirmed by the Senate, and not usually obstructed, but the Democrat. But I love this whole constitutional crisis. And, yeah, how many federal government employees are elected? Ask any idiot member of Congress that. Caroline Leavitt was great at the White House briefing yesterday.
We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. And they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits.
Without evidence.
Quick newsflash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts: 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people.
Thank you. Very well said. She is very good, and she's very good on her feet. And she's articulate. Is that racist? Is that racist to say that she's articulate? Because she is. Yeah, 12 injunctions. And I would, Judge, I do things that, 99.8% of fake reporters in this country never do. Or they keep it a secret when they do it. And I looked at the judge that blocked President Trump night before last with his federal government buyout thing. And it's an Obama appointee who's a left-wing radical who knows that whatever he does, he must bow and scrape to the Democrat Party with every decision that he makes. And, of course, the left, they go around and they call it venue shopping, right? And they bring the lawsuit against the president in a jurisdiction where they know they're going to get an Obama judge or a Biden judge and all that good stuff. And then every time the Democrat nominee to the bench is, the Obama person, the Clinton person, the Biden person, they always, invariably, rule in favor of whatever the Democrat Party wants. And that is corrupt. That is extremely and profoundly corrupt. Make no mistake. Now, there was something that kind of took me by surprise with a decision last night, and that is judge won't halt Trump, Musk federal worker buyout program. Now, it's not a Musk federal worker buyout program, but Musk does now as a something of an employee of the government, and Donald Trump is the president because 77 million Americans voted for him. But setting that aside, I went and I investigated. Federal judge declined to further pause a federal government buyout program, enabling the government to forge ahead with its fork in the road program. Fork in the road is what it is. It's not a Beatles song or anything like that. The district judge, the U.S. District Court Judge George O'Toole, and he's quite an O'Toole, too. Everybody knows that he's an O'Toole. Hey, are you an O'Toole? Oh, yes, I am. Had extended the time frame for federal employees to decide whether to take the unusual offer, which gave employees 8 months of pay and benefits if they wish to depart the government. And the news media, they're very much against this because they do whatever the Democrat Party says. Now, in a Wednesday ruling, Judge O'Toole found that the unions who had sued over the directive did not have standing to do so. Now, I went and I looked up this guy, Judge O'Toole, right? And he ruled in favor of what the Trump administration is doing. And it turns out that Judge O'Toole, surprise, surprise, and it is surprising, is a Clinton nominee. And I was like, hey, well, that really breaks the mold. I got to tell you, that's very unusual for any Democrat judge, and they are Democrat judges. And this guy, I was astonished to learn that he was actually nominated, appointed, approved later, but by Bill Clinton. And he ruled, based on the law instead of on politics. So I'll give O'Toole points for that because that's very, very unusual. Very unusual. Now, the Congressman Andy Harris is a Republican from Maryland, no less. And I was kind of shocked by this. And he was asked about the Democrat, their Goebbels talking point. A lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. That's the Democrat Party mantra. And Republican Congressman Andy Harris from Maryland was having none of it.
Look, this is only the last in a long series of times that my colleagues across the aisle have used the term constitutional crisis. If you go back over the years, everything that they don't like is a constitutional crisis. The bottom line is that this president clearly is within his authority. The courts are going to prove that. So, again, this is just complaining because we are actually going after the deep state, which they like. Which they like.
I like the way you said that, just which they like. Yeah, they definitely like the deep state, don't they? Yes, they do. Also, we were talking a couple of minutes ago about Teslas, and one of our brilliant and well-informed listeners, said, what do liberals do if they bought a Tesla before Tesla, Elon Musk stopped being a Democrat stooge? Right? And he bought Twitter and took away one of their propaganda weapons that they abused to great effect and corrupted the presidential election like the third worlders that they are. Well, it turns out that Democrats have found a workaround for that, and they've got bumper stickers for their Teslas. And the bumper stickers say things like, I bought this Tesla before Elon went crazy. And they have multiple stickers that say, I bought this Tesla before Elon went crazy. And different shapes and sizes. And I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy is another one. And I'm not a fascist. I bought this before Elon went crazy. They love the little goose steppers. They love that stuff. And, while they're following the Russian playbook, right, accusing you of doing whatever they are doing themselves or what they know they're about to do next. And they love to call everybody fascists because, the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, they think, and wah. My Tesla, here's one that Democrats can buy. My Tesla didn't assembled by Elon. They're nothing if not illiterate. Anti-Elon Tesla Club is a car magnet they sell. And our friend and colleague here at the radio station told us a few minutes ago that he saw this sticker. It's a black sticker with the name Elon on it with the red circle and slash through it. You're supposed to put that on your Tesla to show that you're pro-Tesla but anti-Elon Musk. It's a hate club, isn't it? These people need help. A lot of help. Man, oh man.
Are you aware of what a serious breach of security that would be? I mean, you'll see everything. You'll see the big board.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Now, it looks like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been confirmed. Is that right? Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy has 51 votes now in the United States Senate for confirmation, 48 against, and every Democrat voted against the Kennedy family member. And it looks like Mitch McConnell, the turtle, voted against him, too. He's not on his own side. He's the turtle. But it looks like Robert, and he's a weirdo, and he's got problems with this and that, but I'll take him because the Democrats, and I'll just leave it at that. Tulsi Gabbard confirmed yesterday the turtle voted against her, too. But it appears that a simple majority needed, 51 and 51. The threshold has been reached, and RFK Jr. will be confirmed as, and I got to say that the EPA administrator, right? And President Trump, his nominees march forward, and he's getting them confirmed all over the place. Oh, this is kind of a funny story, too. The Wall Street Journal. Elon Musk's X, which was Twitter, when they banned President Trump from Twitter, and President Trump sued them, Elon Musk has agreed, X, his company, has agreed to pay about $10 million to Donald Trump to settle the lawsuit. President Trump sued when it was not owned by Elon Musk, but by Democrat Jack Dorsey. Of course, Elon Musk was a Democrat then, too. He's agreed to pay about $10 million to settle a lawsuit that Donald Trump brought against the company and its former chief executive, according to people familiar with the matter. That's kind of funny. All right, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has now been confirmed by the United States Senate, become the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. I think I misspoke a few minutes ago. Become the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, and the vote, Rand Paul had not yet voted when we last spoke minutes ago, but the vote is 52 to 48. That means every single goose-stepping, armband-wearing Democrat voted against a member of the Kennedy family to be on a Republican president's cabinet as the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. He's not elected either. He was confirmed by the Senate, but not elected. So 52 to 48 because Cocaine Mitch voted against him. That was one of the most ridiculous slurs ever. The Democrats calling Mitch McConnell Cocaine Mitch. That was really a clown car. But 52 to 48, which is the same vote that we had yesterday with Tulsi Gabbard, also a former Democrat, coming in as Director of National Intelligence to the Trump administration. 52-48, because every goose-stepping Democrat and Mitch McConnell voted against Tulsi Gabbard, and every goose-stepping Democrat and Mitch McConnell voted against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think President Trump kind of gets to pick who he picks, but Mitch McConnell put out a statement, and I learned something I didn't know, but it's a ridiculous statement nonetheless. McConnell comments on RFK Jr. nomination, and he goes off, I'm a survivor of childhood polio, Mitch McConnell says. I should have known that, I think, but I did not know that. In my lifetime, I've watched vaccines save millions of lives from devastating diseases across America and around the world. And Robert F. Kennedy has said 100 times, I'm not anti-vaccine. He's got 6 kids. He said all of his kids are vaccinated. He said, and look, he's got issues with vaccines. He wants to look at particularly new vaccines like the COVID vaccines, which keep changing. And he wants to make sure they're safe. I want to make sure they're safe. A lot of people have had a lot of weird effects from and we're not looking at that either, and we should look at that, and I think RFK Jr. will look at that. Heart issues, cardio issues related to the COVID-19 vaccines, which are myriad now. But there he goes off on the vaccine thing again. Individuals, parents, and families have a right to push for a healthier nation. I believe that's his whole thing, isn't it? And demand the best possible scientific guidance. That's his whole thing, isn't it? On preventing and treating illnesses. I believe that RFK Jr. would agree with you on all of that. Wah, wah, wah. But the turtle voted against Tulsi Gabbard yesterday, former Democrat. The turtle voted against RFK Jr. today.
I have never been anti-vax. I have never told the public avoid vaccination. The only thing I've asked for, and my views are constantly misrepresented.
And it turns out that is the case. He's not lying there. He was under oath there. If he did lie, he should be held accountable for lying under oath. But never mind that. Man, oh man. I'm telling you. Yes, I am.
I believe that that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine.
And the first line of his book, I'm not anti-vaccine. How many times do I have to say it? For the love of... I got 6 kids. They're all vaccinated. It's probably mandatory to go to schools, private exclusive schools where members of the Kennedy family go and you don't, and your kids don't. There's a fun meme going around on Al Gore's amazing internet. So, I mean, that is big news. And again, President Trump's cabinet coming together, his nominees just marching through, and the Democrats voting against again, uniformly, as they always do. There is no diversity of thought in the Democrat Party ranks. They all agree on everything all the time. Oh, speaking of which, there is a completely crazy story that broke yesterday that I want to share with. Speaking of the Democrats being absolutely crazy, as they are, and there are so many stories to get to, I've got to say, but here's a crazy Democrat story from Life News and not the Washington Post, because they don't cover the news. Democrats remove, there was a Congressman Henry Hyde, right? Longtime, kind of big leader, chairman Henry Hyde. Democrats remove Henry Hyde's name from courthouse because he was pro-life. And there's a picture here of the entrance to the Henry J. Hyde Judicial Office facility. As pro-life titans go, who could ever surpass the late Congressman Henry Hyde, a Republican, of course, author of the Hyde Amendment, his against all odds victory has conservatively saved 2.5 million babies. It's the rock against which the abortion industry has bashed its head for over 44 years, ever since the Supreme Court, by the narrowest 5-4 margins, upheld in 1980. Up to that point in time, federal Medicaid programs paid for 300,000 abortions a year, a number that was steadily rising. There are more than 1 million abortions in the United States last year. The Democrats want more. I think they don't like children, except when it comes to things that they shouldn't like children for. Amazing stuff. But in any case, the Democrats in DuPage County, the board chair, Deb Conroy, said it's time to scrub the courthouse of Henry Hyde's name, since his amendment denied federal Medicaid dollars to fund abortions. As just tax dollars, didn't have anything to say about, whether you kill the kids or the grandkids, just about whether tax dollars could be used to fund abortions. And the Hyde Amendment said you can't use, because there are a lot of, people of faith in this country, not Democrats, but never mind that. So they have scrubbed the name Henry Hyde off of the courthouse, DuPage County, because he was pro-life and they are not, and they can't sit still for that. So the Democrats are so anti-life that DuPage County Board votes to strip U.S. Representative Henry Hyde's name from a courthouse because he was pro-life. He is no longer with us, Congressman Henry Hyde, the late Representative Henry Hyde's name to be removed from DuPage County in Illinois. He was an Illinois congressman, of course. And the Democrats there, Democrat board chair, spearheading this whole thing, Deborah Conroy, because the Hyde Amendment is offensive to them, that you can't use taxpayer dollars, tax dollars, to get abortions. So they're going to strip his name. I think we should strip the names of, maybe the Klansman, Robert Byrd in West Virginia. They got about 500 buildings named for Robert Byrd, who founded the KKK in West Virginia, didn't exist before him, and they proudly put his name all over buildings. They'd probably name a naval ship after him, and it would have a pointed white hat. It'd be a white ship, with a pointy bow. Aren't they amazing? Our Democrat Party. Yes, sir. Got stripped the name of Henry Hyde off the courthouses because only one courthouse, because he was pro-life. And you can't have that. Oh, yeah, and another wild story. This is a wild story, too. They're very, very angry indeed, about President Trump offering buyouts to federal government employees. Well, let me go to the New York Times from 1994. Kind of an amazing story. President Bill Clinton signed legislation today intended to help reduce the federal workforce by about 273,000 people over the next 5 years by offering buyouts of up to $25,000 to employees who leave government. Remember, Bill Clinton famously said the age of big government is over. He was mostly lying, but Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House for much of that time, and Newt Gingrich was serious about being an adult. After all the rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, our administration has done the hard work and made the tough choices, Mr. Clinton said in a statement released in Coronado, where he's vacationing. That's San Diego, Del Coronado, Hotel Del Coronado. The legislation aims to help cut full-time federal workforce to 1.88 million by the end of fiscal year 1999 in a more compassionate and cheaper way than involuntary layoffs. Well, that's what President Trump is doing, too, offering voluntary buyouts. The buyouts, I'm continuing with the story now from Bill Clinton, The buyouts are expected to reduce the workforce by nearly 12% over 5 years. Under the bill, federal employees, a federal employee who has completed 12 months of continuous service could take severance pay or a lump sum of $25,000, which is less on, leaving, whichever is less on leaving government. The employee buyout plan gained wide bipartisan support after it became evident that the reduction goals would not be reached through attrition or involuntary dismissals. Congressional investigators concluded that involuntary dismissals would disproportionately affect who? Minorities and women. And you know how much the Democrat Party cares about minorities and women? Just ask Bill Clinton and Jefferson Davis. Mr. Clinton said the legislation would help the government achieve goals laid out in the National Performance Review released by Vice President Al Gore last year. The review promised to make government work better and cost less, aimed to maximize savings. Isn't that amazing? So the Bill Clinton administration had buyouts for government employees, and that was good then. But when President Trump does it, then it's bad. See how that works? Because Democrats. All right. I'm doing it again, aren't I? Yes, I am. But we've got too many stories breaking here. I'd like to apologize. But, all right, let's grab a phone call, Michael, because there's another funny story about masculinity, and the Democrats are really upset with Trump and Musk because the musky masculinity of it all is too much for him. I've got that story coming up as well. Right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Gary calling from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Gary, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Thanks for taking my call.
You betcha.
You know, in March, we're going to come up to another continuing resolution budget decision. So I think Trump ought to be proactive and prep an executive order that says, listen, Congress, your number one job is to balance the budget. Since you can't do it, here's what I'm going to do. Historically, the DOD gets 10% of the GDP. Well, they're going to get 8. HHS gets 4. Well, you're going to get 3. NASA, you got 5. Nope, you're going to get 4. And I'm going to take all that remainder and I'm going to put it to the deficit. Now, if you're short money, you go argue with the other departments and you get your funding. Yeah. Other than that, until you guys can create a budget, I'll create the budget for you. And I got one more idea.
Fire away. You sound like Newt Gingrich during the Clinton years. Go ahead.
He ought to preemptively pardon Cheney for treason. No, hear me out. We'll never get her for treason.
Liz
Cheney,
her for
right? Destroying evidence and everything else. Yep, Liz Cheney. Preemptively pardon her for treason. She can either accept it or not, but she has a pardon hanging over her head for the rest of her life for treason. Clinton, manslaughter of an ambassador. Just start tossing all these things out. Pelosi, insider trading. They can either accept or not, but they always have that hanging over their head for the rest of their life.
I was talking to a young woman, a colleague of mine at Newsmax yesterday, who follows Nancy Pelosi's stock trades for her investments. And, it's like fantasy football or something. Well, I like your thinking, Gary. It's fun. And it's
on the defensive.
It sounds very even-handed and level-headed, and that makes it politically smart. That makes it politically smart.
Well, they put us on the defensive for so many years having to fight things through courts.
Yep.
Now we bankrupt them by having them fight their stuff through courts.
Gary, I like it. You're a thinking man. I'm glad you called in. Thank you very much. And I gotta share this with you too, Gary. Axios today. The headline is behind. It's an attack on Trump and Musk, of course. Behind the curtain, they love their colons. Masculine maximalism. And the transgender people at Axios write, President Trump and Elon Musk, arguably the two most unorthodox and influential American leaders of the 21st century, are practicing and fine-tuning a fused theory of governing power, masculine maximalism. Masculine maximalism. This is, and they believe that masculinity is toxic and that fentanyl is tasty. This is, the news media is mentally ill. Masculine maximalism. Fix bayonets. Steve Bannon there, text Steve Bannon. Trump first in business. And Elon Musk, masculine maximalism, which they're against because they preferred transgender feminism. By the way, Democrat states all over the country are fighting against restricting college and high school sports, women's sports, just to women. They think men should be able to compete as women, and they're going to fight it in court. That's what Gary was just talking about, too.
There's too much of toxicity. It's masculine toxicity out there. We've kind of confused what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine.
Now, there's a Democrat member of Congress who's a very silly person, Jan Schakowsky from Illinois. And she's kind of upset with Elon Musk and all that he does because manufacturing, it should be femufacturing because it begins with the word man, and she doesn't like it.
You had mentioned trying to engage more women in manufacturing. I'm just wondering if just the name manufacturing sounds like a guy.
Sounds like a guy, yeah. Right, like manhole cover and all those other, you got anything with the word man, and M-A-N, get rid of that. And speaking of which, they want men to compete in women's sports, and they're fighting in favor of that. They're bringing it to court in state after state. And I had wonderful audio for you today by Riley Gaines and another Caitlin Wheeler, an NCAA swimmer, standing up for women because the Democrats are waging war against women and women's sports and Title IX because they're the party of Bill Clinton.